Good morning, everyone. This is a meeting of the Howard County delegation. I am pleased to say the House delegation is here with a quorum. We are waiting on some senators to hopefully join us, but we are going to go ahead in the interest of time and get started because we do have a lot of bills to work our way through. Senator Lamb is going to be joining us later, so we are rearranging the agenda a little bit to start with discussion of some bills, and we are going to open up with Howard County 1324. So as with last week, I'll just ask the sponsor to give a brief introduction, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. So 1324 is not a new piece of legislation to this delegation. It's the third time I've introduced the bill to try to somewhat address, it would not address the entire problem, but the deferred maintenance issues that we have in Howard County. I think at our public bill hearing, we heard folks from Oakland Mills, we heard folks from Dunlogan, and I think we're all familiar with the issues. It's enabling legislation that would allow the county council to impose a commercial excise tax that would only be used for deferred maintenance needs as identified by the Board of Ed. My office has spoken with the Board of Ed, and I don't want to misspeak, but I believe communicated with Ms. Mallow, who is on today, but it was my chief of staff. And the Board of Ed wanted an amendment to add language that says the funds would supplement and not supplant current funds. And so we were fine with that. I mean, I'm fine with that. So my office yesterday, I think, was going to reach out to Tyler. Hi, Tyler. We haven't met. And request that amendment. And if board member Ms. Mallow, if I misspoke, please correct me, but we were fine with the amendment that you had proposed.
You are absolutely dead on correct. The Board of Ed does support this bill, obviously, because we could really use the funds for taking care of deferred maintenance. And we wanted the explicit direction to the county council and the county executive that it would be supplementing, not supplanting funds.
Thank you. That's it, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start off with just a question I have about this amendment. I certainly understand and appreciate the intent. I'm just trying to understand how it would work. Is that saying to supplement and not supplant funds for deferred maintenance, or are you just talking about this being sort of on top of maintenance of effort? I just want to get a better understanding of how that would.
Since it's capital, it would actually not affect maintenance of effort whatsoever, because I believe the excise tax would go to deferred maintenance, and deferred maintenance is in the capital budget under systemic renovations by and large. And so the request was to be in addition to current mechanisms that fund the capital budget.
Okay. I guess I'm just a little bit confused because and maybe others can correct me, but it seems to me like there's more variation in capital funding. So it seems harder to pinpoint sort of the, other than sort of formula funding from the state. I'm not sure how we pinpoint what's expected that would be supposedly supplanted. And again, I'm appreciating the intent of this amendment. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the mechanics.
It was truly intent was where the suggestion came from. I would say that since we don't, to my knowledge, I don't think we currently use an excise tax for capital funds. I could be wrong, but I don't believe we do. So it would be my hope that that would be a dedicated stream of funding rather than the traditional bonds and other mechanisms used for capital funding. And because it is specifically for deferred maintenance, I assumed it would then be earmarked as such. But because it's enabling legislation, that is an assumption.
Okay. Any other questions from other members of the delegation?
I have a question.
All right, Delegate Watson.
I think that amendment is important. As we've all seen in the past, sometimes these kind of bills can get their funding used in a way that we didn't intend, or supplanting other funds. So I think Delegate Feldmore, your concerns need to be worked out, but I think in general, it's a good amendment if we pass the bill.
Delegate Hale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a question to the sponsor. I don't, the taxes and things are not they're not my bailiwick. Assuming, that this is successful and we catch up on deferred maintenance, does the excise tax continue? Do we have to revisit what happens to that money? Is there an automatic, does something happen automatically within the bill? Because presumably at some point, God willing, we would catch up, right? And there wouldn't be a deferred maintenance issue. So I'm just asking how the bill works around that.
In this version, there's no answer to that question. In the past, I have had a sunset on it, and I can offer a sunset and we can have that conversation if that's, something that people are interested in.
Thank
Delegate
you.
Watson. Oh, I'm sorry. Did that answer your?
No, it answered the questions. I thought I had a memory and it was removed, and I wasn't sure if that was because there's a problem with it or if it was being reworked to be, once maintenance is caught up. But I think if I recall from previous conversations when the chair, when Senator Gazzoni was here, there was some issue about the nexus, which I think in our previous conversations we've resolved. And I didn't know if the removal of the sunset was because of that issue. In other words, it's more like an assessment in the form of an excise tax for a period of time if we automatically sunset it, and that might create other problems. So I didn't know what the thought process had been about why not sunset it. Thank you.
May I respond, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think I'm looking back at the older versions and my notes, and I think actually it was just overlooked that we didn't put the sunset in here, but I had a 5-year sunset in the prior version.
As you consider that going forward, would it be, let me just ask that you maybe think about, talk with your folks about whether a sunset be not linked to a time like 5 years, but once deferred maintenance has been totally caught up or whatever, right? So we're now working at a pace that's what would be the sunset provision, not just a random number of years.
Okay.
Delegate Watson. You're on mute.
Sorry, I cannot recall from our previous discussions whether or not this concept was given legal sufficiency. Can somebody remind me with the history of that? I mean, do we know that we can actually legally do an excise tax on commercial property to pay for schools?
Yes, I do know that. Several years ago, I started working on this with the tax expert in the Ways and Means Committee who drafts pretty much all the tax bills. And we can do that.
Okay.
Okay, not seeing any other questions right now. Oh, Delegate Gazzoni.
Sorry, I lost my mute button for a second. So I'm just curious, are there other jurisdictions in the state that have done something like this?
Other
I-
jurisdictions have done an excise tax. I have to go back and look because I did get that information before. I don't know if it was used specifically for schools, but other jurisdictions have done, not a lot, a couple, an excise tax for a specific purpose. I just don't recall what that purpose was.
Okay, thanks. Can I follow up just for a quick second? Just because I'm curious about what the effects of this are from our sort of economy at this point, with interest rates being higher and less, I believe anyhow, less commercial building occurring anyhow. I'm just sort of curious, is this going to really significantly help us with the challenge? I'm just
So,
to this.
no, thank you. And actually, I had some similar questions, and I think we, in previous years, have discussed this and sort of heard concerns from economic development and the business community about sort of the impact this might have on commercial development. And if it has an impact of slowing commercial development, then it's not going to produce the revenue we're hoping for, right? So I was hoping, Ms. Arthurs, I don't know, I don't necessarily expect you to have this off the top of your head, but if you could get us some data from the county on commercial building permits, sort of, how we're doing currently. And I think it would be helpful if we had that sort of going back to pre-pandemic now. And I guess I don't know if the county would have this data, but maybe the Economic Development Authority on current office vacancies, because my understanding is that we haven't really quite recovered in the office market from the pandemic and sort of the shift to more remote work. And so just sort of looking at what the commercial development market is right now and what impact this might have.
Yeah,
I think would be helpful.
We can definitely pull that data for you and work with EDA to get what you need. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Tarasa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess I'm a little confused about the statement that it would discourage commercial development, other than if any tax or fee would discourage commercial development always. Since isn't this enabling, Madam Chair Atterbury?
Yes.
Isn't this just enabling? So the county would be able to set, or does it set a rate?
The county would be able to do that. The county
Right.
could,
So,
Yeah.
right. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, I was gonna say the county would do their due diligence and look at all these things. And they could do it. It's meant to be, and we've had this discussion in the past, it's meant to be just a tool to help this major problem that we have in our county.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not really clear on how any rate would discourage commercial development. And I think that could be set by the county. I also, just in terms of deferred maintenance, has there been a time when we were completely caught up on I'm seeing a note from Board Member Mallow. I just think that there's always, you're always deferring some maintenance in order to achieve other goals that are probably equally important for the education of our children. So I'm just not sure I see when that date would be. So I wouldn't want it to, well, I guess putting it that way, I'm just not sure how that would end, but that's fine with me also. So thank you.
Delegate Ziegler.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts. I think there probably is an amount of excise tax that could just be a real black eye for Howard County, but hopefully the county council wouldn't do that. There's so many factors that a business looks at when they decide where to locate. And certainly, who else lives in the county and what other amenities they are, like schools, that I think are probably more important factors. And at this point, our deferred maintenance problems are really public and really severe. And I actually feel that's a bigger deterrent for commercial development than a small excise tax would be. Montgomery County did recently do one on top of their property tax for schools. So yeah, I think this is a good idea. I agree with Delegate Hill that a specific sunset is probably not a good idea. It's hard to pass a tax increase. If we did it, we should probably allow it to, but as this is enabling legislation, that wouldn't, I don't know that we need to put in a sunset. The county council could change what they're doing if all of a sudden maintenance got caught up with. But the only last point I wanted to make is that deferred maintenance is incredibly expensive. And I think it's one of those vicious cycles that we've gotten into, because the more, you don't fix the hole in the roof and the roof collapses, you're looking at a lot more money. So thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Wu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there are two parts about the capital project. One part about the new construction, right, for the school system. The other part is about the deferred maintenance. And if some money goes to the new construction, that means less money for the deferred maintenance. I believe this is enabling the county council to find a solution that is give them a new tool to give extra supplement money to the school system. Hope that money can help us at least begin to tackle the issue. We know that money need is huge, like $500 million at least. So by beginning to look at that, I think we are working with the council to really see how can we address that problem step by step. We actually don't know, right, how long it may take, but at least we're beginning to think about the issue to find a solution.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? One more bite at the apple, Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is really a process question because I know that with a small Senate delegation, it's often going to be difficult to have a quorum. Is there a process by which the House delegation can vote, not necessarily today, but I mean, where we can vote on things and then leave it to the Senate chair to poll the Senate members and get there since we've got this bizarre thing. Yeah,
we can work on that and work on perhaps scheduling specifically with a commitment from senators for voting.
And if I, as you know, when you, I, and Senator Lamb were in Baltimore County, they also required separate votes from the Senate and the House, but they met separately too.
Right.
And so, and you and the other delegations where they meet together, it's just often just a general majority, not House majority and Senate majority. So
okay, we're gonna move on because we've got more bills to get to before we get to voting. Senator Hester.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I have a question on the excise tax bill.
Sure.
And I was in the waiting room, so my apologies. But the question is, it's my understanding, like post-COVID, that a lot of our commercial office spaces are now empty and people are not returning to work. And so my question, which maybe, somebody at the county could help us with, is like, how much new construction is actually going to take place? And then parallel to that, if we want to empower the local county government to have all the tools, shouldn't we be considering a transfer tax?
So, Senator Hester, I can speak to the first part of your question. Before you joined, I did make a request for building permit data from the county and office vacancy data from economic development. So I think that will help look at your question. I asked for that to be historical from pre-COVID. So we can look at that recovery or lack thereof. To the second part of your question, that's certainly a policy question for this body to consider.
Well, whoever is, Madam Chair, whoever is getting the data on the permits for the building, could they also get the data on the transfers?
Sure. Ms. Arthurs, are you able to get that for us too?
Yes, I just want to be clear. Senator Hester, you said the transfer on, or I'm sorry, the data on transfer tax?
You mean
Or
commercial?
what's generated from transfer tax data for
Let
homes
me,
or commercial?
I'm not sure at this point. I'm not on budget and tax. I just know that there's a lot of commercial office space open. Let me get back to you. Let me talk to the budget and tax, folks and get back to you with a clarification.
Absolutely.
Delegate Watson.
On that note, I think what Senator Hester wants is maybe a breakdown of the transfer tax between residential and commercial. And if you're speaking of a transfer tax addition on the commercial side, or are you speaking of it overall, including residential? Senator Hester, she's gone.
I think that what we need to make a good decision is to have all of the data in front of us.
Yeah.
And so the excise tax, both transfer taxes, like we just need to know what actually happens. I mean, you could potentially split something across all three. So no one single tax was doing everything, right? Hitting one part of the industry or harder. So I would love to see all the data so that we could empower the local government to make the right decision.
As part of that, doesn't Dr. Wu have a bill in to study the transfer tax?
Yes, thank you. So my bill is really focused on relocation of the percentage. It's not about the increase or decrease of the transfer tax.
Is it about deferred maintenance, or is it about just getting more money to the school's capital budget?
Just more money to capital budget in general.
Which could impact deferred maintenance.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Seeing no other hands raised, and while we have a quorum on both sides of the delegation, I'm going to turn it over to Senator Lamb to take up the LBIs.
All right, great, thank you. So we're going to go to back to the top of the agenda. There are a bunch of LBIs that are presented here. I just wanted to make clear for the audience that there is additional process that takes place for these LBIs even after the delegation votes on them. There's additional information that's taken in, additional data that's collected that is presented for the budget committees for their review. And then the budget committees certainly go through their process. There's a capital budget subcommittee that also meets to review each of the LBIs, and then additional input is taken in from the delegation as well. So I just want to make sure that for folks that may be watching or listening, that there are many additional steps that take place even beyond what takes place here in the delegation. So with that, I know we have a whole series of these here. Is there any discussion on any of these LBIs that members would like to talk about? Okay, so if there's no discussion, I saw Delegate Hill first, followed by Delegate Ziegler.
I was just going to move the slate of LBIs, but if there's additional discussion, I can hold that until that discussion's over.
Okay, Delegate Ziegler, is this for discussion, or you were also seconding the motion?
No, it was for discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
And this is because I'm too new to understand really how this works, but the Days End Horse Farm purchase of the old Lisbon Fire Hall, they're asking for $550,000 because they need to do an elaborate sprinkler system, ironically, in a fire hall. And that would cost $500,000. And it was a shock to them and their budget. I'm getting this from the hearing that we had in Howard County. And I just, I I feel this in general, but I wonder if they pushed back on that at all, and if that is really and truly necessary. $500,000 strikes me as an extraordinarily large amount of money for a sprinkler system. So I'm just wondering, as we evaluate LBIs in a tight budget world, if there's any way to sort of ask some more questions.
I think if there are more questions that want to be asked of them, they can either be directed to whoever may have sponsored this LBI or to the organization themselves. If you would like, and this has been done before, we could remove them for now from the vote and have them come up at one of the upcoming or the next delegation meeting if you would like more information about it. That's certainly a possibility, but those are kind of the options to look at for right now.
Well, I would defer to the group, but that would be my recommendation. I love the project. I think it's a great project. I just think they may not realize that sometimes you need to go back to the county and say, really? Why?
Okay. Sure. Anyone else want to speak to the Days End Firehouse project? Delegate Hill.
Thank you. I was just going to say from my experience talking with other firehouses in past years, the sprinkler system, I know what you're saying, but the sprinkler system, again, it's plumbing into the ceiling of a relatively large space. And these tend to be expensive projects. I'm not sure. I mean, there's certainly no problem with asking the county, but my understanding is that generally these are, fire requirements because the space is going to be used. And so there's not a lot of flexibility there. Ms. Arthur may be able to think. The question is there better pricing? And because of the kind of work that has to be done on an old structure to get the piping into the ceiling, I know we've had some projects in my former district that had to be postponed to get.
Yeah.
She's frozen.
Delegate Hill, you still with us? I think she looks like she may be frozen. Okay. I see everyone else's head nodding. So it's not just me or her. So, all right. Well, if she comes back, we can let her wrap up her comments. I think next I saw Delegate Terraza, followed by Delegate Watson. Delegate Terraza, was it about this LBI or was it about a different one?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is more of a process question, so I'll wait till folks ask their questions about this.
Sure. Delegate Watson.
I was just going to say that with the budget, the fiscal situation, the way that it is, we will not be able to fund many of these projects, and we will not be able to fund the amounts that are being asked. So I'm not sure that the 500,000 really matters, whether we can ask questions about it, but it's unlikely that we would be able to fund that project to its full amount requested, as well as many of the others. So I just want to put that out there so we don't waste time if we don't have to.
I think that's probably right. It's unlikely that any of these projects will be funded at the full amount being asked. I hope that didn't burst anyone's bubble. Sorry.
Reality.
Sorry, Senator Hester.
So my question was, historically, we have approved, most of them, and then the prioritization, it has been easy in the past few years because we've had more money. So is the prioritization of these LBI projects happening for all of them now? Or are we going to will we move to approve all of them pending the availability of funds? Like, there's two different conversations we could be having. And I want to be clear on the process. I don't think I'm ready for the other one, for us to actually vote up or down individual projects because we don't have enough money. So what's the process?
So historically, the process has been to, if the delegation feels comfortable, to approve them. And they are certainly reviewed and re-scrutinized at the committee level, most likely by the capital subcommittees, capital budget subcommittees. So there's still a lot of process that occurs beyond this. And so for us as a delegation, it's really kind of giving our initial blessing to these LBIs, and then there's a lot more that takes place beyond this.
Yeah. So if I might just respond to my opinion, I hate to negotiate with ourselves, right? I would be in favor of voting, for them all, and then having it go to that next step.
Traditionally, in the past, we have voted on all of them or nearly almost all of them. So just for process. Okay, Delegate Terrazas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now that we're discussing process, that's not, my recollection is slightly different, and maybe it's just me. But I do think we've been doing this since COVID, but what I don't understand as a process is us passing, like, I believe before that what would happen is these would be discussed and certain ones would be put forward. I see Delegate Feldmark saying, or Madam Chair, but that is my recollection of what happened before COVID. And I am a little confused about the process, because while there's more process after this, what happens is if we put all these forward, somebody's making a decision to prioritize on which ones to prioritize. And I'm not sure I understand why we would give up our ability to prioritize our own projects. I mean, we're just saying, here's all of our projects, please fund them all. And what if we think some are more important? So I'm a little confused by that process.
Delegate Edberg.
Thank you. So to follow up on what Delegate Terrazas said. So what generally happens since I become chair is that Chair Barnes will go to Senator Gazzoni and myself and say, which one of these do you want? Delegate Watson is on the committee. I'm sure he would talk to her, and that's pretty much how it would happen. So I think if this list wants to get narrowed down by this body, it should do so in this forum.
Senator Hester. Senator Hester, go ahead.
Sorry, I was muted and then unmuted. I think what would be helpful then is for us to just, have like a week, look at all of the LBIs, identify any additional questions for all of them, and then take a vote, one by one, or not. I don't know. I mean, I'm not familiar with them all. What I'm saying, Mr. Chair, is I am not as familiar with all of the LBIs as I am with the ones that I submitted. And if we're going to do a one-by-one vote, I would like another week.
I'll say as the chair for the last 5 years, I don't think we've done one-by-one votes on these LBIs. We can certainly do that if the members choose. In the past, there have been instances where most often what we've done is we voted on them as a consent calendar. We just vote them as an entire block. Obviously, any member can pull any particular LBI off the consent calendar, and that can be voted on as its standalone LBI. Just for a reminder, all these LBIs had a hearing that took place back in November when we had the public hearing for folks. Those sponsoring organizations came forward and did make their case for these LBIs. And so if there's a need to, you can certainly refer back to that hearing. I think it's online somewhere, or back to the data sheets that came with all of these LBIs, which are with the delegation administrator. And you're welcome to look at that if you choose to better understand what each of these projects are. They include contact information for each of the sponsoring organizations, and you can follow up with them as well. But process-wise, in the past, they've been voted as a consent calendar.
So I'm fine with a consent calendar. I'm getting mixed messages from this discussion. I would be happy to follow up with the Days End folks to answer Delegate Ziegler's specific question and take the opportunity to remind the body that this is the only state horse rescue in Maryland. So it is the only place that we can send horses that are impounded from within the state, and within the neighboring states are often accepted as well. And we have given them LBIs in the past, and the fire system is like the sprinkler system is the last thing that's left to open this building. So it's not, in my mind, it's in my district, but it's actually a statewide project.
Okay. I had Delegate Terrazas hand up. I don't know if that was still from before, then Delegate Hill, and then Delegate Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To clarify, and I've been attending these meetings, probably there's some others here that have been attending these meetings as long as I have, for about 16 plus years, because I was a makeover rep, so I was at all the meetings before that. And there was a vote on projects, but there was not an up and down vote on each project. There were certain ones that were brought forward if somebody thought they had the votes. I don't necessarily think we need an up and down on everything. If we just are good with those making this decision to go make the decision, or if we want to lobby them, that's fine with me. But we're forfeiting our chance to have input, or we can do input offline. But I don't think it's the same as a hearing. A hearing is sort of information. Often you to have a discussion and have further questions, but I don't have any particular questions about any of the projects, so I'm fine with whatever it says, but I don't recall ever seeing an up and down vote on every project.
That's because we took up and down votes mostly as a consent calendar. And the hearing was the opportunity for members to ask questions. I think there were some questions that came forward, not many. Each one of the LBIs had someone there to present for 2 minutes, and there were opportunities for questions from any of the members. Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarifications, we're talking about historic processes. Depending on the chair, and certainly, I would chair, and some other, at times when other people would chair, what we did at the House side is we would go to the delegations, the district delegations, and ask the members of that delegation to, in other words, we voted it out of delegation. And when it came time for the appropriating committees to make those decisions, we would ask the delegates to weigh in, and sometimes to rank the order, what the priorities were in their particular districts. And then that priority ranking was given to the respective chairs who had the authority to work with the appropriating committees. And some of the decisions were made that way. And I think that's the piece that has been missing from the discussion, that there was opportunity for the members, at least on the House side, to weigh in based on the projects in our districts.
Okay, Delegate Watson.
Yes, thank you. I'm a member of the House Appropriations Committee, and I'm a member of the House Capital Budget Committee. One of my responsibilities is to speak with each one of the House members, which I will be doing, to ask you what your individual priorities are on that list, because we don't know the amount that will be available, and we want to fund as much as we can. It doesn't make sense to eliminate some at this early stage. So before, Delegate Hill, actually, we didn't have a member on the Appropriations Committee. And so, except for Delegate Terraza,
I was on the Appropriations
first year, right? So for a while, we haven't had someone. And
after that, we still did have somebody.
And so I think we should proceed with approving, unless there's some project somebody wants to pull out. I think we should proceed with approving them and moving them to the next level, and then certainly I will, and I know Chair Atterbury will have conversations with each delegate to see what your priorities are, and we're going to do the best we can in conjunction with the Senate.
All right, thank you. Chair Feldmark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to recommend that in the interest of time, if folks are comfortable moving these forward as a consent calendar, so that they're all still in play and viable options. And then, I think we can continue the process as it has traditionally been. If there's concern about articulating a different process, we can take up that conversation. I do want delegation members to recognize that if you want an additional delegation process, we are going to have to dedicate more of your schedule to delegation meetings because we have a lot of other bills to get through. So that's my recommendation for now.
And there was a motion on the floor, so does that serve as a second, Madam Chair?
I'd be happy to second.
All right, so this is a motion to approve of all the LBIs as a consent calendar. Any objections, any desire to pull any of them off a consent calendar? This is LBIs A through S. Okay, seeing none, we can have the delegation administrator take a vote.
Yeah. Senator Lamb,
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark,
Yes.
Senator Gazzone, Senator
I'm sorry, did you call my name?
I think she's frozen.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
We can hear you, Senator Hester.
Okay.
okay.
I'm assuming
Got
you
it.
must have called my name and I'm a yes.
Okay. I think my internet is having some trouble. Delegate Atterbury,
Yes.
Delegate Gazzone,
Yes.
Delegate Hill,
Yes.
Delegate Terraza,
Yes.
Delegate Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Wu,
Yes.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, we'll move those to the appropriate committees. We have 15 minutes left. Do we want to adjourn now for folks to get to the floor? I don't know, given our rate of progress, if we have time to open up another bill for discussion.
Yeah, I think given our current rate, we should probably not start a new bill now. I don't think we'll get one completed. So just a couple of announcements before we adjourn. We do have coming up our second public hearing. It will be Tuesday, January 30th at 7 p.m. It will be held virtually. The information on signing up to testify will be available online on the delegation's webpage, hopefully later today. And that information will also be going out by email to our distribution list. And we will be meeting next Wednesday, January 31st, again at 9 a.m. So please make sure you have both of those items on your calendar. Anything else, Senator Lamb, before we adjourn?
No, let's close this out.
All right. All right. See you all later. Take care.
Right.